Hey everyone, here we are again with another one of these sit-down story time sessions. Today's topic is going to be my personal wild animal encounters / attacks and injuries. So, y'all know, if you've been following my channel, you know I am a fisherman. I also just have a passion for nature and wildlife in general, and I take a very hands-on approach. My idols growing up were Steve Irwin and Jeremy Wade. They still are. And I tend to follow their example when it comes to my interactions with wildlife. I will always try and handle the animals. I always make sure they're safely released and properly handled. I'll show them off to people, spout some fun facts, even if there's no one there with me. So let's start out on land, all the animal encounters I've had on land. And before I go into these stories, I just want to add a disclaimer. I am a big, smelly, stupid human. All the animals that I'm about to talk about were acting purely in self-defense. I hold no ill will towards them. It was all my fault that they acted that way. That's the impression you should have too going forward if, God forbid, you find yourself on the receiving end of an animal that chooses violence. Anyway, so yeah, we'll start out on land. Let's just get the common ones out of the way. I'm sure we've all been attacked by ants, or swarmed by ants, stung by wasps or bees. You know, it's happened to me many times. Not really, nothing really stands out. No stories in that department. Spiders, actually I've yet to be bitten by a spider, even though I have handled many spiders in my life. Never handled a brown recluse or a black widow though. That's a no-go for me. Other spiders like orb weavers, wolf spiders, I forgot what they're called, but they're this other kind of spider that's brown, which I know narrows it down a lot. But every spider I've handled, regardless, has not bitten me. They've all been super peaceful, or just kind of scuttle around as if nothing's going on. So let's just veer away from the more common stuff and get to the more unique stuff. A bird. One time a bird did show to me that it did not approve of me being there at the time. I was down in Florida. This was about, I think, April or May, and it was nesting season for the cardinals, the bird cardinals, not the team. And there is a mother and a father with 2 chicks, and I think they were both fledging. One of them was more developed than the other. She was hopping around, she was flying in short spurts. The other one, I think, was a little boy. He couldn't even fly. I think he maybe had just left the nest. He was just kind of really ungainly, hopping around from bush to bush, stuff like that. I was watching him, and he, being the butter-fingered bird he was, he actually slipped off the bush and fell onto the ground. And he wasn't hurt because he weighed like nothing. When you fall from a certain height at a certain weight, only then it starts to hurt. But when you're a little baby bird falling from 3 feet, it doesn't hurt at all. So being the good person I am, I pick up the little cardinal, I put him back in the bush, and how does he repay me? He pecks me. Literally bit the hand that saved him. And I was more shocked than anything. I was like, bruh. And I bet you're wondering, what did it feel like to be pecked by a bird? It felt like nothing. That cardinal was a little bitch, and I hope he grows up to be big and strong, because he was packing some weak sauce when he decided to be a big man. I hope he eats his Wheaties, or since he's a bird, his wormies. And I wish the best for that male cardinal. Actually, here's a picture of him right now. I'm going to show it over right now. Now let's move on to the animals that actually had an impact on me, the snakes. So I see a snake in the wild. It's like a disease. I just have to pick it up and kind of hold it. I don't know why. I know the snake handlers, as in the Christian sect, they handle snakes regularly to kind of prove a point, to show dominion over Satan. But I don't think that's the case with me. I think I just handle snakes because it's cool and because I can. Venomous snakes, like the dangerous spiders, the 2 spiders I mentioned. With venomous snakes, I do not get within 10 feet of them. It is not worth it. One bite from them, you are hospitalized and you could potentially die. So I've not been bitten by a venomous snake. Well, actually, that's a lie. I have been bitten by a venomous snake. It was a garter snake, an eastern garter snake. Picture right here, that's the same one. And it turns out they actually are venomous, but their venom is so weak, it only affects bugs and small lizards. He bit me right here, just about like on the thumb. There was bleeding, there were 2 puncture wounds, like little droplets of blood, and I felt like a burning, itching sensation for maybe 10 minutes. Didn't affect me at all. Like, it could have just been an insect bite for all I knew, but it was venom. There is snake venom in my blood, which is awesome. But it's the non-venomous snakes, however. It's the rat snakes and the water snakes and the black racers that have done a number on me. I've been bitten, I think, I want to say 7 times by non-venomous snakes, all from ones I attempted to handle. And actually, here's a video of one. This was from June 2020. This was a black racer that I caught in my parents' yard. So here we go. Dude. And the thing about the non-venomous snakes, when they bite you, is kind of a bizarre thing that happens. So their teeth are very sharp, but they're also very thin and very long. So the actual pain of getting bitten by a snake, non-venomous snake, you feel more the impact than anything. You feel maybe a little prick, like you brush your hand against a thorn, but it's more the impact of their actual skull hitting your hands, like that, really, and little prick, like I said. So every time I've been bitten, it's been more like kind of a surprising, like a, yo, I just got bitten by a snake, not an ow, I just got bitten by a snake. Nothing like that. I mentioned the teeth being long and thin because while they don't trigger many nerves, it doesn't hurt, they will still go actually like lengthwise, deep into the skin, and they will sever all the capillaries like that are in there, and you will bleed like hell. So while the pain is like nothing, there will be like rivers of blood running down your hand like you've been stabbed. Yeah, so I'm trying to think. I think 2 rat snakes, 3 water snakes, 1 black racer. I think there might have been an extra water snake in there. So that, yeah, that's about 6 or 7 or so. The other thing about reptile bites in general is you still have to put some attention to the wounds, because reptiles, especially like lizards and snakes, are basically like caked in salmonella. You get bitten by a non-venomous snake, yeah, it's not going to put toxins into you, but it still might give you salmonella poisoning. So you better wash out that wound with soap and water if, God forbid, you ever get bitten by a snake, even a non-venomous one. I think that is the most exciting thing that's happened on land. Let's move on to the sea, or rather to the water in general. As a fisherman, I catch a lot of fish, obviously. I mean, that's what a fisherman does. And a lot of fish, like bluegills, bass, have very spiky dorsal fins. I've gotten pricked by those countless times. There's a species of fish called the pinfish. There's a picture of one here. Lives in salt water. Their dorsal spines are like nails. Those actually do hurt. It is annoying to try and grasp them because if they're excited, they will just flare it. It's like that, spikes going up. Catfish are the worst probably, or one of the worst rather, because they have very like spike-like projections on their fins, and their spines have a mucus that also serves as an anticoagulant. So you get pricked by them, it'll hurt like hell and your hand will swell, but you also just won't stop bleeding. Super annoying. I remember my dad got pricked by a catfish once. His hand was stiff for like 6 months. Thankfully, the few times this happened to me, it hasn't been super serious. We'll tell you one thing though. There is a type of fish that lives in the Atlantic Gulf of Mexico called the leather jacket. Picture one here. And they are one of the most insidious fish you will find in the sea, because you expect with a fish that looks like a freaking lizard like that, you expect them to be have a bad bite to them. Not the case. Their dorsal fins also have needle-like spines, and they also have an anticoagulant. You get pricked by one of those things, it is like getting hit with a burning needle that just won't stop digging into your skin. and you will bleed from that little pinprick that they put in your fingertip. You will just bleed for an hour, up to an hour. It is the most obnoxious thing because of those spines, they get caught in my cast net a lot, and trying to get them out is hard because their skin is like super slippery. It's like a bar of soap with burning, bleeding needles covering them. It is awful. I do not like them. Now, funnily enough, if you've been following my community posts, you would see that I catch a lot of sharks and stingrays. I haven't shown the stingrays yet, but you have seen the sharks. I've caught stingrays that were like the width of a car tire with a barb like that long, really gnarly stuff. Never, not once, been injured by a shark or a stingray. Surprisingly, maybe because I'm super careful around them, maybe because I like study how to handle them. But yeah, I've handled sharks that have been big enough to take off a hand or a foot. No problems there. I'm always super careful, and I've always been super lucky as well. And I'll tell you what has bitten me though, a squid. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. A squid bit me once. This little Atlantic bobtail squid, picture right here. If you remember things about cephalopods, they have beaks in the middle of their tentacles. And yeah, they actually, one bit me once because I caught it in the cast net. I was holding it. I was kind of like, oh, look, a squid. That motherfucker like suckered onto me, just went. And I was like, seriously? You bit me, squid. That was kind of like a needle almost, because they just, their beaks are surprisingly sharp, and that's just so they could cut away from their prey, which is like, small fish, shrimp, stuff like that. So yeah, that was memorable. Now, sticking to the ocean, I'm going to tell you now about the absolute worst injury I've ever received from an animal. Flashback to June 2017. Our family was on vacation in Italy. We were staying in Rome. Over the week, we visited Florence, the Vatican, and a seaside town called Positano. Positano is, like I said, it's on the ocean. It's built onto the mountainside. If you were to look at it from an angle, it looks like a layer cake. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous place. And for people who visit Italy for Naples or Florence or the Vatican, Positano has to be on your list too, because it is just, there is such good food. The scenery is wonderful. The seaside vibe is intoxicating. Anyway, so we were at the end of our trip in Positano. The ferry wasn't due back for another hour, and there's a beach right there, a public beach. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking hey, why don't I cross this thing off my bucket list I didn't even know was on my bucket list, which was swim in the sea in a foreign country, Mediterranean in this case. And I get down to the beach and I realize just what a culture shock it is, because all the beaches I've been used to have been white sands, smooth white sands, slowly going out into the ocean, like in Florida and whatnot. Not the case in Positano. Here, the sands were black, and when you get out to the ocean, the sand didn't continue. When you got into the water, it wasn't sand, it was boulders. Boulders that you pretty much had to you couldn't walk through the water. You had to jump from boulder to boulder. That's the only way you could stand upright and stay afloat, is by jumping from boulder to boulder through the water. I get down to the beach, I take out my belongings, take off my shirt, I'm just in my shorts, go in the water. I start jumping out, jumping from boulder to boulder, something like that. And about 3 minutes in, there is just needles in my foot. I take a step down, all of a sudden spikes, and it hurt like hell. I actually shot it out and jolted and started treading water immediately so my feet wouldn't touch the ground. And without even seeing it, I knew what it was. Sea urchin. You always hear about sea urchins, read about them in books. You see them in picture books when you were a kid. You always see pictures of them. They're these big spiky balls kind of thing. And you never really think about it. You just see sea urchins, you think, oh, I'm never going to see one of those in real life. I'm much less never going to get stung by one. I did get stung by a sea urchin. And here I am kind of like half treading, half hobbling back to shore, careful not to let my feet touch the ground again. And I look at my foot and I know I'm in trouble because I counted 23 of these little black dots embedded in like the top half and the toes of my right foot. Every one of those black dots was a spine that had actually gone into my foot so deep that I couldn't even pull them out. And I naturally was scared because I had never been stung by a sea urchin before. I wouldn't even know what to do if I got stung by a sea urchin. And I didn't really have time to look it up or anything, because I think the day after was when we were supposed to pack up, get all our crap together, and then fly back to the States. I'm walking around in pain. I can barely move my foot. There's just it feels like constant splinters with every step I take. And finally we fly home. I am, fighting through the discomfort, and I look up, how exactly do you get sea urchin spines out of your foot? And here's the answer. You don't. Sure, you could try soaking your foot in warm water, which would help loosen the skin and soften the barbs so you could pull them out. But no, you don't, because as it turns out, sea urchin spines are actually serrated. They have backwards facing hooks on them that catch the flesh. So if you were to pull them out the way they went in, it would just catch the flesh and make it hurt worse and scramble your insides, basically. So what did I do? Well, the way you technically get sea urchin spines out of your foot is that the body will naturally absorb the spines as calcium deposits, because apparently sea urchin exoskeletons are just rich in calcium. So on one hand, I was glad that I didn't have to drink milk or anything like that to get my calcium from, because I was just going to get it like a implant from the sea urchin spines. But on the other hand, those spines stayed in my foot and caused pain for 3 months. I walked around with 23 spines in my foot for 3 months. I started my sophomore year of college with sea urchin spines in my foot. I went to school part sea urchin. And that is without a doubt the most significant and the most painful animal injury I've ever received. The way I'm going, it probably won't be the last, and I would not have it any other way. So that's my stories. See you all next time.